Aiboan, Vanakkam, Assalamu alaikum, and good evening. Welcome to part 2 of AmCham Sri Lanka's signature IPR session for the year, Maximizing Opportunity and Profit Generation through Leveraging on IPR. We are pleased that this two-part series has featured some refreshing insights and ideas on intellectual property rights and how they can be leveraged to reinvent your business, especially in challenging times. Our speaker this evening, none other than AmCham's IPR expert consultant, Revan Weerasinghe, who has promised to share with us early next week a concise publication of the presentation he shared last week, as well as what we are about to see. Ladies and gentlemen, Revan Weerasinghe, an independent legal practitioner specializing in the areas of intellectual property, information security, company law, and commercial transactions. Revan, good evening, and over to you.
Good evening, Right. Thank you for that introduction. So intellectual property is something that we find in our day-to-day lives, but it's something that impacts all of us. And it is something that successful companies have deeply leveraged on for the purpose of creating profit, generating opportunity. And that's what today's lecture is all about. Last week, we spoke about three storms that any company would have to face, and three storms that we are about to face at the moment. The first, of course, is COVID-19. COVID-19 has impacted businesses the way we see, and it has impacted our lives completely. People call it the new normal, and it is a new normal. There's a new way of doing business altogether. The second storm that I spoke about is the potential economic crisis that might hit all our businesses and might hit us in time to come. That is something that we need to take cognizance of, because it's something that is might be here to stay. The key questions I raised last time is, how do you pivot your organization to be able to face these storms? I will now share my screen and get on with the presentation. The subject of today's topic is maximizing opportunity and profit generation through intellectual property. When I first thought of this topic, I thought it sounds a bit brash, or it sounds, maybe we could discuss something else. But the fact of the matter is, the most vital, important element of IP is the role that it plays in profit generation. And especially at a key pivotal time like today, where profit generation is an issue and it's a concern to most people, because cash flow is a significant issue. I thought it's an apt topic to talk about, and how Sri Lankan companies can leverage, not just pivot to face the storm, but leverage on intellectual property to create new opportunity, enter new markets, and generate profits. I think that's what we all want to do for our business, what we all want to see for our businesses. So once again, last time we talked about these three storms. COVID-19, the potential pending economic crisis, and the issue of being relevant in the marketplace. That was the third storm. I spoke about how China and India and Bangladesh and Vietnam, due to big manufacturing capacity, massive agrarian lands, has been able to leverage and create economy of scale. We discussed last time that economy of scale allows people to sell at a cheaper price point. Now, Sri Lanka is a small country, right? We are an island nation, and we don't have massive agrarian lands. We don't have massive manufacturing capabilities. We don't have big manufacturing plants. The question is, how do we face this coming storm of losing relevance in the marketplace? The main reason why someone can lose relevance in the marketplace is price. If we are outpriced, if Sri Lankan produce is outpriced in a global marketplace, our buyers will go to other suppliers. And you see this happening in all our industries. You see this in spices, you see this in textiles, you see this in every export that Sri Lanka sells to a global marketplace. How do we stay relevant is the question. I addressed this somewhat last week when we discussed the fact that our companies need to be smarter. We need to develop smarter companies to be able to pivot to changing times, to be able to be more relevant in the marketplace. Our products need to change with the times, and we need possibly to move from a commodity selling mindset to a value selling mindset, a mindset where we sell products that have value addition and value addition capability. I spoke about the elements of this smart company, right? But it all starts with a paradigm shift. I'm just recapping Rai from last week. The paradigm shift that I think is essential for most companies to start with is the fact that innovation does not take huge budgets. Innovation is not a costly exercise. Anyone can innovate. I said last time that innovation does not take time either. It only takes the process of making time. And you only need a budget for R&D when you decide on your next step. But innovation starts with an idea. This is what we were discussing last week. Innovation starts with an idea. And that idea starts with looking into your business and thinking, okay, we need to change. Yes, we are about to face certain storms. We need to change with times. What do we do next? How do we create value to our products? How do we create newer products? How do we create newer opportunities to enter into a marketplace? So I spoke about this smart company. But in order to create new opportunities, I said the first thing you need to do is start with the problem. Where does the problems lie in your business? Where do the opportunities lie in your business? But even to identify opportunities, it starts with identifying the problem. I went to the definition of an invention, which means to say an idea of an inventor which permits in practice the solution to a specific problem. The key ingredient in recognizing where to start is identify where the problems are. And that's not just problems in your business, but that's problems with regards to your consumers. What are your consumers' key problems? Because if they have a problem, then you as a supplier have an opportunity. And that is the starting point of innovation, to realize that if there is a problem in society, there is a problem that needs a solution, you then have an opportunity to cater to that problem and generate profit. Like I said, this whole program is about generating profit. So you start with identifying the problem, then you step back and see the opportunity that you can create to address that problem. I said last week that this method can be used to develop new markets or solve existing problems. It can be used to bring your costs down, the cost of production down, the cost of transport down, the cost of storage down. And it can be used to address an individual's problem in the marketplace. So first innovation can be used as a cost-saving approach for your own business, and then laterally, a way of creating new opportunities to enter new markets, untapped markets. We all talk about blue ocean strategy, right? We've learned it in our MBAs, we've learned it in our business programs. Blue ocean strategy is going into untapped markets. And a key element of going into untapped markets is this realm of innovation, identifying opportunity. But to identify opportunity, you need to start with the problem. We spoke last week of an innovative company, a company that preserves this element of idea generation. It has within its process the cornerstone of idea generation. It has this process going on a regular basis. It has teams looking at the marketplace. It has teams looking inward to the company. Where do opportunities arise and how can we capitalize on it? How can we create a new market, a new product? How can we enter into this product? And how do we make our existing processes more cost effective? Like I said, we are facing a storm at the moment. We are facing an economic downturn. How then do we create new products to be able to face very new opportunities in the market? Now, if you talk about COVID-19, I'm recapping again, if you talk about COVID-19, there's a new flux of opportunities that have arisen to different companies. There's a whole new gamut of opportunities. For example, transportation. For example, sanitization. For example, education. It has created a new normal to all our businesses, and therefore there is a need for idea generation. But keep in mind, for idea generation, the principal starting point is start with the problem. An invention means an idea of an inventor which permits in practice the solution to a specific problem. If you get that fundamental right, your business will suddenly pivot towards that of an innovative company, which is the type of business we need at the moment. So if you're a restaurant, you will think of new ways of getting your food supplies out. If you run a hotel, you will think of bringing tourists who are guaranteed safety from COVID-19. If you're in food, you will think of sanitation. The list goes on. This innovative company also looks at idea evaluation. As a part of its process, the management or board of directors will meet and evaluate the different ideas that are generated for the potential of generating profit and opening new opportunities of income. That process has to be built into the new innovative company that is required to cater to the storms that we spoke about last time. The said innovative company would also leverage will create an IP enabling environment within its organization. So much so that employees would be free to discuss their issues, discuss their ideas, and discuss opportunities with the management, knowing that someone is not going to steal their idea, that they will rightfully get credit for their idea, and maybe if certain companies want to go that direction, they will get royalties even for their idea at a time when it's taken to a marketplace, at the time of profit generation. We need to start thinking of innovative companies, and these are the cornerstones for innovative companies. Information security, I said, is key, and I said for information security to take place, there are 4 key pillars, key fundamentals that need to be embedded in any company. You have to leverage on statutory on the IP Act, for instance. You have to leverage on your rights. You have to have right agreements and policy documents in place, right? That people have to have a need to know information. Not everyone has to have that information shared frequently. You have to build in the pillars of information security that I spoke about for there to be proper idea generation and for you to be able to leverage from that idea generation for greater profit and greater commercialization. Then you need to leverage on IP. Last week I spoke about how to create an intellectual property strategy for the innovations that are created in-house. How do you plan ahead so you can see exactly where you want to take your IP? If you have a patent, you plan ahead to see exactly to which countries you want to patent. How you're going to protect your IP. Are you going to protect it via copyright, trademark, patents, industrial design? To which marketplaces do you want to take your IP and for what reasons? This all needs to be thought about. How you're going to profit from your IP. Are you going to profit from your IP through license arrangement, or are you going to have a first mover advantage having that value addition of your IP already on board to give you a commercial advantage in the market? These are all decisions that need to be done at the R&D stage or prior to even the R&D stage, at the idea generation stage. The faster you are in plotting a course for your intellectual property, depending on which marketplaces you want to go to, the more robust your IP would be, and your chances of commercialization will increase because there is a well-plotted plan to it. If you fail to look at all these aspects on where you want to take it, how you're going to profit from it, which markets do you want to go to, how you're going to enable markets, how you're going to gain passive income, are you going to license it, are you going to trademark it, etc., you will potentially lose out, or your idea might fall by the wayside because you sometimes may be reinventing the wheel. I spoke about creating or putting in due diligence mechanism to identify the potential of your intellectual property. Can you get a patent for it? Can you get an industrial design for it? Can you get a trademark for it? You need to do that due diligence beforehand, otherwise you will be losing money and you will be losing your investment if you end up reinventing the wheel. That is something at all costs smart innovators need to avoid, the aspect of reinventing the wheel. I gave you this fork that most innovators have to face, which is the choice as to whether you want to license or whether you want to develop, whether you want to reinvent, whether you want to invent, right? If something already exists, there is no requirement to reinvent the wheel. And I'd say a lot of people make that foolish error, schoolboy error, of going into innovation through excitement without doing necessary due diligence to see whether that intellectual property already exists in the market, right? Especially at a time where budgets are constrained, you need to do this due diligence. Otherwise, there's a good chance that at times you may not get a patent, you may lose the opportunity of a patent, and you might end up reinventing the wheel and wasting a ton of investment. Right? This is what we spoke about as an innovative company, and that is the cornerstone to making profit and generating profit in a global marketplace, not just a Sri Lankan marketplace, but a global marketplace. And these are the fundamentals that need to be put in place in your corporation, your company, if you want to take your market to if you want to take your inventions and products to a global marketplace. Last time we spoke about Sri Lanka. And we spoke about, like I said, relevance in the marketplace. Now, China and India, as I said in my introduction, have mega manufacturing capabilities, and they are also going into intellectual property. They are also going into value addition, right? If you look at our key exports, a lot of them are produced and manufactured by China and India. If you look at tea, rubber, coconut, you find it in China and India. If you look at garments, obviously they do the same. They too shop around with all our customers. But the advantage they would have, and I would say a lot of other countries in our region has, is they possibly may have cheaper labor costs than we do. And now they have the investment to be able to invest in greater industrial advantages than we do. They leverage more on mega factories, on mechanization. And with a cheaper labor force, Sri Lanka stands to be affected in time to come. In time to come, to be being unable to compete. What then do we do? How do we compete with them? Now, this is the problem with price. If China and India are able to supply at a cheaper price point, then of course they stand to have more quantity, more demand towards their products. Similarly, if Sri Lanka, for whatever reason, be it high labor cost, our price point is very high, then there is less demand that comes for our products. How do we compete? I've thrown a fourth country into this picture, and that is that of America. Now I put that here not because I'm on AmCham, but simply because I want to draw them out as an example. I saw them to be a relevant example simply based on population. Now, if you look at China and India, China has a population of 1.4 billion. India has a population of 1.3 billion, roughly. America has a population of 325 million, which is 1/4 of the other two countries. However, America competes well, I would say, with all these giants. It's still known as the most powerful nation in the world. We all look at American products and we see them as being things that items of quality, right? They have the most powerful military in the world, and they have one of the best education systems in the world and quality of life, I would say as well, relatively, not the best, but relatively. How do they manage that with a population of 325 million, and what can we learn from? Now we have a population of 21 million, and we are competing on economy of scale with all the big boys, not just China and India, but let's look at our region: Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal. How do we compete? Now the reason I plotted America here is for this reason, and I would say this is the number one reason for their success, is they own shares in all these companies, which is why America is great, not just because Trump said it, right? And if you look at all these top companies, and if you break down the assets of each of these companies, I would say it's not necessarily the employees. Employees come and go. It is the intellectual property that is found behind each of these companies. Each of these companies, and if you break them down, you will see very, very advanced intellectual property. So let's look at Nike, for instance. Nike patents more than most sports brands out there. It's always on the cutting edge. It hires to its departments top-end scientists. And why I know this is because some of our garment and textile factories deal with Nike. And you can see the state of the art in which Nike plays at. They do play at state of the art of technology, either in material science or innovation. Nike patents a lot. If you look at Facebook is primarily copyright and license agreements, all part and parcel of the realm of intellectual property. Google is a search engine. That's software. That's primarily software. They leverage on license agreements and software. eBay, Castrol is a highly innovative company. Motorola is a highly innovative company. Gillette is a highly innovative company. KFC, its success is as a result of its KFC and McDonald's. Its success is as a result of their franchise arrangements. The standardization they keep, it's not just a brand name. The brand is built on standardization. Their brand is built on quality, on franchise agreements. These are two of the largest franchises in the world. Look at Pizza Hut. Coca-Cola is the best known trade secret in the world. Right? Very few people know that product. And the reason they made it a trade secret is because a patent only lasts 20 years. Excuse me. So they want to keep their formula secret. If you look at Boeing, they are highly innovative company. They are highly into innovation, which is why Boeing planes are some of the safest in the world. HP, Hewlett-Packard, and the list goes on. YouTube, Apple. Now, apart from the innovations that go into all these companies, these are also top brands. And what is a brand? A brand is nothing but a trademark. So America leverages highly, intensely on intellectual property. If you look at Hollywood, now what really makes America great? I went to Hollywood and I saw it to be a very small place, but what makes America great in most people before they visit the country is Hollywood. We all have this we have this awe factor, not awe factor, but with regards to the American military. And that is a mindset that they have created, which is brilliant of them. And of course, they have probably the number one military of the world. But that was created through Hollywood, which is IP. Hollywood is IP. YouTube, it deals with copyright and license agreements. Don't forget, YouTube licenses our content and puts it out to the world and pays us back for the content that we gave, provided we go past a certain popularity. So the lesson I'd like to leave here is IP fundamentally creates profit. If it's used well, it can be probably the most powerful tool for profit generation. I will explain why. The number one principle why IP is the most powerful tool for creating profit is because IP creates value. Okay, that's there is value generation in intellectual property, and it is that value is preserved in IP. So if you look at this situation of America, because of the value of all these products, they are able to sell their products at a higher price point and not a cheaper price point. Now, we spoke about price elasticity. Now, one fundamental about IP is the fact that this curve may not be the foundation for making profit. With IP, the more value you create, the higher the demand for your product goes. So you're looking at a different curve altogether. You're looking at a curve where the more value you create on one axis, the more demand you generate for that product. So it's it counterbalances the whole price elasticity economic concept that we speak about. Which is why America is able to compete with the rest of the world with a very small population. Because they're not playing let's sell at the cheapest price point game, which the rest of the world is, what we are. They play China and India does as well. They play the game of creating value. The more value you create, the more you are able to sell at a higher price point and to a greater demand. So the number one principle that I would like to inculcate as to why IP is necessary is because IP protects value. IP protects value, and the more value you create, your company can excel. Let's look at the key products and exports of Sri Lankan company. We have tea, rubber, coconuts, apparel, spices, and essential oil, gems and jewelry, boats and shipbuilding, Sri Lankan food. Right? I've just written down a few examples of how we can create value and whether any of our companies have really thought about it. Now, these are our key exports. Let's take a step back and see as to how much innovation we have actually done pertaining to our key exports of tea, rubber, coconuts, apparel, spices and essential oils, gems and jewelry. Let's talk about Sri Lankan food. The question came to me as to, whether we actually have a franchise of Sri Lankan food that is found around the world. I mean, you find that coming from, you find many Indian franchises, you find many American franchises. Have we thought of leveraging on intellectual property to create a franchise? Let's look at our key products and exports. Tea, rubber, coconuts. have we created value to these products, or do we sell them at bulk? Traditionally, yes, I think we've been selling them at bulk. But I'd say since of late, things have changed. If you look at Dilmah is a very powerful brand now, and it is a brand known worldwide. If you look at rubber, we are one of the largest manufacturers of solid rubber tires, much to the credit of Sri Lankan companies. I believe Solidil and GRI are doing are top ranking in this selling of solid rubber tires. Coconuts. Do we have value-added products pertaining to coconuts and coconut exports? I know cocoa peat has suddenly become very popular the world around, and cocoa peat is used for a number of solutions the world over, especially in having home gardens, and even catering to animals, farm animals. Cocoa peat is used in stables and such industries. Apparel, I know apparel companies are innovating very successfully, and several innovations have come out from the apparel field, especially in the realms of smart fabrics, or fabrics that have a certain value addition attached to them, like be it fabrics that do not retain smell, be it fabrics that are more durable. Our garment factories have excelled in that. But what have we done in the area of spices? Moringa and cinnamon. Now there is a company I know that does cinnamon products. They started off as a cinnamon company, and then they now have created a nutraceutical which enables cinnamon to help your cholesterol levels go down. And I think they patented it, which is why I'm talking about it. So we need to be able to leverage from our key products and exports in order to be relevant in the marketplace. So this was what I discussed last week. Today's presentation is primarily on intellectual property and how we can generate profit through IP. Right? So let's start at the very beginning. What is IP? IP refers to creations of one's mind. Everything from works of art to inventions to computer programs to trademarks and other commercial signs. It's a definition given by the World Intellectual Property Office. But what necessarily is IPR? IPR is a bundle of rights. It is a bundle of rights given by law, given by the Intellectual Property Act. In Sri Lanka, the Intellectual Property Act number 36 of 2003. This IP Act sets out what rights you have when you have either copyright, patent, trademark, or industrial design. Apart from these four fundamentals, copyright, patents, trademarks, and industrial designs, you have unfair competition, integrated circuits, and geographical indicators as part of your Intellectual Property Act. What is copyright? Right. So at this stage, I will take you through what the four elements of IP are, and then we will go into how to commercialize it successfully. Copyright covers music, software, plays, books, photographs, sculptures, drawings, paintings, movies, works of choreography, and works of poetry. Copyright is granted upon creation. That is something you have to know. You have to be able to create something for you to get copyright. If you have copyright purely in your mind, you're not going to have copyright for that. Sorry, if you have your idea purely in your mind, you're not going to have copyright for that. A copyright work has to be original, meaning it has to be your creation. It cannot be a copy of anything else. This is straight from the Act. And it is protected solely irrespective of its form, mode of expression, or content, quality, or purpose. For example, I am a terrible artist. My artistic skills are terrible. But throughout my lifetime, I have attempted at making several paintings. Now I have copyright for each and every one of those paintings, and no one can dispute it. Not that anyone will want to copy it, but I have copyright for each and every one of those paintings. The beauty about copyright, it is granted for the lifetime of the author plus 70 years. This is copyright. Now, what is a trademark? A trademark is a business identifier. A trademark is granted to you upon registration. That is something you need to know. Right? So now what you see before your screen are all trademarks. Now we use it on our day-to-day business. We use it daily, most of these products. And we call it brands. But what these symbols that you see before your screen, what they really are, they are trademarks. And what they do by registering a trademark, what you do is you claim ownership of this mark. You claim ownership of this mark. That mark, therefore, is yours. And you can do business with that mark. And nobody else can use that mark. So after a while, what happens to a company is the company generates goodwill attached to its mark and keeps on generating goodwill attached to its mark. Now, for instance, the value of most of these marks are probably more valuable than the companies themselves. It becomes more valuable than the furniture, than some of the softwares that these companies own, or even its staff control. The reason for that is trademarks have the ability to gather goodwill, and this goodwill accumulates. A trademark is granted upon registration by an applicant. One thing you need to know is trademarks are territorial, and it is only granted for that country in which you register a trademark. And it is granted upon first to apply necessary conditions in the trademark office, which includes conformity with sections of the IP Act. Now, one thing all you business owners need to know when filing a trademark is that you need to, your mark has to be in line with sections 103 and 104 of the IP Act. This is very, very important. Because you may apply for a trademark and then later it might be struck down if you're not in conformity with these sections. These sections are very simple. 104.1 says that a mark shall not be granted which resembles, as in such a way to likely to mislead the public, a mark already filed by a person in the marketplace, or which resembles in such a way as to mislead the public an unregistered mark used in Sri Lanka, or which resembles in such a way and likely to mislead the public a trade name that already has been filed in Sri Lanka. A mark shall also not be registered which consists of shapes or forms imposed by the inherent nature of the goods. Now, for example, a lot of marks now describe the goods and services that it tries to sell. Now, if you look at Pizza Hut, it describes the goods that they're selling. I would consider that a weak mark. I would consider that a weak mark simply because you're not going to have exclusivity to the word pizza, whether you apply for it or not. You will only have exclusivity for the word Pizza Hut put together. Now, say somebody comes with the name Pizza House. Can Pizza Hut stop Pizza House? Yes, I'm sure it can if Pizza House came after. But it won't be easy because Pizza House can take up certain defenses saying, what right have you got to the word pizza? Right? Pizza describes the goods and services. You may have rights to the mark Pizza Hut put together. But then, shouldn't I then have a right to have the mark Pizza House? Now, this would be argued, and it'll be up to a judge to decide as to whether Pizza House is confusingly similar to that of Pizza Hut. But either way, what you need to keep in mind is your marks should be unique. To have a successful mark, your mark needs to be unique. It needs to be something that you cannot, that you can easily identify, and something that is distinct of your business. Now, for example, if you take all these marks, especially the mark Google, you see it to be a very powerful mark because you don't have the name Google in the English language. Sadly, now you do, because people use Google as a verb now to say, I'm going to Google these facts. So now Google is losing a bit of its rights based on the fact that it's popular. But that's another legal argument altogether. Adidas is a name unheard of. Samsung is a name, well, in the English language, it's unheard of until Samsung came along. So these marks are very distinct and very powerful. A trademark is granted only for a single territory, and you need to go and register at the IP office. I'm just moving through what the different IP forms are before we get into this whole element of how do you profit. What is a patent? A patent is a right granted by a state upon application by an inventor, which gives an inventor exclusive rights to his invention. Basically, a patent is an invention. It is a bundle of rights that protect inventions. These rights are territorial. Once again, you can only get it from the IP office in which you went to file it. And it is granted for a period of 20 years. Right? Provided necessary fees are paid in the IP office, or the patent is not nullified in a court of law. Now, for a patent to be granted, it needs to be novel, right? And it must involve an inventive step. Third thing is a patent must be industrially applicable. For a patent to be novel, the IP Act says, for an invention to be novel, the IP Act says an invention has to be new, and it will only be considered new if it is not anticipated by prior art. You need to, the Act goes on to say, prior art shall consist of everything disclosed to the public anywhere in the world, or the contents of a patent application previously filed. So the first thing is your invention cannot form anything that exists anywhere in the world. So that is a very large test to fulfill. A lot of scientists are very excited when they are faced with a new invention, when they come up with a new idea. And in that excitement, some of them are negligent. I'm not saying all, I'm not pointing my fingers at anyone, but they're negligent in doing the necessary due diligence to see whether this invention exists anywhere else in the world, in any form of technology, in any form, in any manner or form. As a result of that, two things can take place. One, they might not be granted the patent. Two, their patent may be nullified after it is granted. Now, nullity is something that you must take cognizance of before you file a patent, and it goes to show as to why you should be diligent in doing necessary steps of due diligence before in doing your novelty test before you file a patent. Nullity is where even after the patent has been granted, say your patent is granted, someone can petition court, can file a plaint in the Commercial High Court of Sri Lanka saying that your patent should be nullified because it does not conform to either the test of novelty, or it is not inventive, or it is not industrially applicable, or it is not patentable in terms of section 62.3. 62.3 of the IP Act sets out inventions which are not patentable. For example, discoveries, scientific theories are not patentable. Schemes, rules, or methods for doing business are not patentable. Methods for the treatment of the human body or animal body by surgery or therapy are not patentable. An invention which is useful in the utilization of special nuclear material or atomic energy is not patentable. Leaving aside all that, do the necessary due diligence before you file for patent. The third, or maybe the fourth type of intellectual property that you have in your arsenal of different types of IP is industrial designs. An industrial design, like a patent and a trademark, is a right granted by a state upon application which gives exclusive rights to the design. It is a right that protects the design of a product. Now, if you take the Coke bottle, it has a very unique shape. If you take this chair right at the bottom, it has a very unique shape. Some vehicles have very unique shapes. Like if you look at the new Tesla truck, it has a shape that I have never seen on a truck before. The question is, can they get an industrial design for it? If they do, no other truck can be of that same shape. So it protects product designs, and it is a key part of industry as a result. So it is the right granted by a state upon application, which gives exclusive rights to a product design, and it applies to any composition of lines or colors or three-dimensional forms that gives a special appearance to a product of industry or handicraft. What are the requirements? It must be new and must have been available, it must be new like before, must not be scandalous, and it is granted upon first application. Now let's get to the meat of the presentation. How does IP generate profits? Firstly, it gives you a right to use your products in the marketplace. Then it gives you a right to sell your products in the marketplace. Then it gives you a right to license your products and franchise your products, and a right to prevent others from doing the same. And it is very attractive to investors. Right? Now I've set out certain examples with regards to companies that use its own IP to generate profits. Right? So here you see the DJI drone. Now DJI has been doing a lot of R&D on its products, and it has created this fantastic drone. Now this drone has more than 5 years of technology or 10 years of technology added to it. Now DJI has several patents in this area. I've also put the BMW M engine, M-powered engine, which has several patents attached to it. Now these companies, what they do is, they keep the IP to themselves. Some are licensed, but some of them are kept to themselves. The reason they keep this IP to themselves is primarily to have a commercial advantage in the market. Now everybody wants to get a BMW M-powered engine. The reason for that is that engine is superior to most other engines. Why do people have an affinity or want to have an Apple computer? Because the technology that goes into Apple is far superior than what is found in most other computers. I'm not putting Apple above everything else, but I'm just saying they have done a lot of innovation there, and there is a lot of intellectual property attached to your Apple computer. Now, from a Sri Lankan point of view, there are several companies that create innovation to create a market advantage for the purpose of creating a market advantage in the market. Now, there's a company I spoke to you before that sells cinnamon. They've created a nutraceutical that affects cholesterol and has many health remedies. If you look at the Dilma mark, it is a very powerful mark. And that has allowed Dilma to have a massive advantage in the market. Slintech has this company that I work with, that I consult to, Sri Lanka Institute of Nanotechnology. They did a JV with CGTL, Ceylon Graphene Technologies, and they created a novel method of creating graphene from graphite. And they have licensed, they have filed for patents all around the world. And that puts them in, that gives them the advantage of being able to sell graphite at maybe a cheaper price point, or with larger profits. Now, I don't know what their vision for that technology is, but they own the process. Then I saw on the internet, MAS has created something called spring compression wrap, which is a device that you can use, especially when you're flying for long hours on an airplane, to be able to it compresses your legs, so it enables better blood flow right through the body. The reason I cited these examples are these companies use their intellectual property to be able to generate profit. Then there are certain companies that license technology to generate profit, like for example, Microsoft or Lightroom, Adobe Lightroom. Facebook enters into a license agreement with us to use our content. And upon membership, we enter into a license agreement with Facebook to use their platform. Netflix does the exact same thing. Netflix enters into license agreements with suppliers of content, and then we pay Netflix to be able to see that content online. Are there similar Sri Lankan products out there that license technology? Now, you would see license agreements used in everything that we use on our day-to-day basis. If we ask somebody to take a photograph of something, they might license back to us our photograph. But have we, as Sri Lankans, come out with any groundbreaking innovations pertaining to licensing? Like, what about Sri Lankan movies? Is there a Netflix out there that can be created to showcase Sri Lankan movies to Sri Lankans living abroad and Sri Lankans living in Sri Lanka? Can there be a similar arrangement as what you get in Spotify and Apple Music for Sri Lankan music? Now, I know Dialogue Ringing Tones did a fantastic job in that area of allowing people to download Sri Lankan music on and use them as their ringing tones. Then the next way you can profit from IP is you can franchise IP. Now there's McDonald's, KFC, Starbucks, the Coffee Bean. These are all big names that franchise IP, and they are able to profit from that. The beauty of this is you're able to stay at home, enter into a franchise agreement that sets out exactly how your burger is created, how your coffee is made, the look and feel of your establishment, the look and feel of your company, the look and feel of your restaurant. And those people will pay you royalties to be able to use the goodwill of your brand name and sell coffee or food using the same. Now, as Sri Lankan companies, have we created a successful franchise? I'm waiting to see one. But I think it'll be great to actually see a successful franchise from Sri Lankan companies. For example, Sri Lankans are the highest exporters of cinnamon. Do we even have something similar to Cinnabon in the country? I still haven't seen that, and it'll be great to see that. why is intellectual property important to business? Well, primarily, like I said before, it enables profit. You're able to firstly have a commercial advantage in the market because you have exclusivity of your innovation. You have exclusive use of your innovation. You profit through your brand name. You profit through the goodwill attached to your brand name. Secondly, you can generate passive income. For example, if you write a book, if you write a piece of software, or if you license a patent, then you can just sit at home and see the royalties accrue in. Simply because you have done it once, then you have published it, and then you stand to earn an income. For example, if I write a book now, there might not be even need for publishing it. You can just upload your book to Kindle, or you can recite it to Audible, and you can sit at home and make profits that way. IP enables this because once it's created, it is protected, and it is protected for you. Similarly, your brand value will accrue goodwill the moment you leverage on your intellectual property, on your trademarks. So these are the key reasons why IP is important to generate profit. Now, I'd like to bring this seminar to a close by talking about a hypothetical company called WaterSpark. Now, WaterSpark was a company that is a Sri Lankan company. It's hypothetical. It's a Sri Lankan company that came up with an invention for a biodegradable bottle. Say a biodegradable PET bottle. And now it's created this at home in Sri Lanka. I want to ask this question because we've spoken about profits. How can it leverage from this invention to expand its territory to a global marketplace? Now, firstly, you can patent it. You can patent it and you can trademark it. If you trademark it, you're able to create goodwill around it. But primarily, if you patent it, then you're able to have this commercial advantage in the marketplace. Because people would want to buy WaterSpark more than anything else because it is biodegradable. Then, if you want to further generate profit, apart from the commercial advantage you have in the market, you would be able to license this product to other carriers of water or other products that enable the use of this type of PET bottle. Your composite is novel and no one knows about it. But because you have patented it, you are therefore safe even if someone reverse engineers it. But of course, with your patent, you disclose what goes into the composite. So then this water supplier from Bambalapitiya, having created this invention, may thereafter stand to gain by selling this abroad. Now, prior to doing that, he would need to do what's known as the novel research and see that this does not exist anywhere else in the world. If it doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, then he can get a patent. And if he gets this patent, then he needs to patent it in all the other countries to which he wants to export water. So my plan to this water manufacturer is patent in countries X, Y, Z. Take your water to those countries, franchise your water to those countries because you have a commercial advantage, given the fact that your water is biodegradable. Now, hypothetically, this bottle disintegrates within a week or 2 weeks, right? So, if you have such an invention at hand, you would go into these markets and you would take your own water there. You would file your own trademark in all those countries, so no one else can create water bottles using this bottle. And you will have a massive commercial advantage in that market. Similarly, because you want to leverage on further income, you license this bottle to other suppliers who do not sell water. Like, for instance, people that sell energy drinks, right? Or aerated water. But not to those that sell water. Only you and you alone have a commercial advantage in using this bottle for water. But all the other carriers who want this bottle will pay you license fees in not just Sri Lanka, but from everywhere else in the world. So this is only possible based on how innovative your technology is. Having spoken, so roughly, let's go back to how you can make profit. You can sell your invention and have a market advantage in the market. You can use your invention and solely and have a market advantage in the market. Invention, trademark, copyright, industrial design. Or you can sell your invention and have an advantage in the market, like photographers sell photographs, or a web designer develops photographs, a web designer develops and sells its web design. Or you can license your technology, like the example of the water bottle, how he licensed his technology across the world. Or he can franchise his operation. For instance, Water Spark, because it's growing to have good quality water carried in biodegradable bottles, they're able to franchise it across the world. And you have a right to prevent others from doing the same. Right? I'm just going to speak for 2 minutes on this. Now in Sri Lanka, we have a lot of ideas being generated, but we don't have an IP enabling environment in the country. One of the key problems to this is access to funding. Startups do not trust some of the networks that they go for funding, and there aren't so many networks. Those who are willing to fund sometimes come with several clauses attached to their funding arrangements, where the startup may end up working for the company that they wanted to start. I'm not just talking about startups. I'm talking about people that want to create, want to innovate, want to flood the market with new products. They don't have skill. There's a dearth of skilled patent writers in the market. Excuse me, to be able to make better patents for all our inventions. We need angel investors to come in, and we need forums where people can showcase the inventions in an environment of trust, where people won't run away with their inventions. As a country, if we are to profit further, and if we are to compete with the West and the rest of the world, we need to put fundamentals in place. We need access to better funding, and we need to create an IP enabling environment in the country itself. Now I went once, I had the good opportunity of going to a forum in Japan. In Japan, it was an IP forum, and we were invited to Osaka University of Technology. We were invited to their topmost auditorium, where the alumni from Osaka University of Technology came and presented on all the technologies that these Japanese companies have created. Most of these Japanese companies had obtained patents and IP protection for it, but they were able to share and later collaborate right through the evening. So they were given like 20-minute slots. Each of these companies were given 20-minute slots to present, showcase the innovation to the audience. And that audience was thousands, 2,000 of people. And later I saw in real time collaboration taking place. So you would get the Toyotas meeting with the Mitsubishis and talking about how they're going to license their technology. Sri Lanka, if we are to take our innovations forward to a global marketplace, if we are to commercialize, to create profits, we need to have an IP enabling environment set out in the country. And that has to come from the top. And also, companies should see the advantage in startups and nurture startups to fruition. Larger companies. Because I'm running out of time, I'll leave on this note that we have a potential. We are at a very strange place at the moment. Whilst there are several storms heading our way, as I discussed at last week's lecture, there is a lot of innovative idea that is created in-house. And we have a millennial culture where students these days want to take to entrepreneurship. They want to take their ideas forward. So the future can be brilliant. The future can be very, very profitable for all concerned. But as a country, we need to nurture an environment we need to nurture an environment that will enable IP to grow. So over the last two sessions, I have covered aspects of a smart company and how one can leverage from IP for greater profit. I'll stop now to take questions from the forum.
Thank you, Revan. Thank for that very insightful and detailed presentation, as well as a recap on what you spoke about last week. So I think that was quite important as a refresher. We do have a couple of questions, but before that, I'd like to actually ask you one thing. So when you were talking about the water spark, something you mentioned was that you're protected, your patent is protected because you have you've now registered it, and even if another company or another person were to take it and reverse engineer it and come up with your formula, you're still protected. Then you also mentioned that during the process of your registration, you would have had to disclose your composition for your invention. Now, just a question to ask you there: if somebody else were to make an application for registration and the composition were different, would that affect my trademark or my patent, or does that not really matter in the grander scheme of things?
Yeah, so a patent protection is given for an idea. Patent protection is given for an idea of an invention, and that idea is given, the protection is given for the claims that you have claimed at the end of your patent. Now, if your patent is too broad, the patent examiner is not going to give you a patent for it simply because you're not disclosing the invention. You have to make a clear disclosure of your invention. Sometimes you may not get a patent if it's sometimes you might not get a patent if it's too broad, simply because you already have patents in that area. So you have to limit your patent to your exact same technology. Now, if somebody wants to vary their invention to yours, if it's outside the scope of your patent, the four walls of your patent, they might be able to get a patent for it. Which is why you need to be very smart in the way you file for patent. You need to sometimes file 2 or 3 patents that cover every single possibility of the same invention, right? And which is why patents are costly, because you sometimes need to create what's known as a patent wall, that bridge that all the gaps pertaining to your invention, because you are now disclosing your patent to the world, and anyone then can use it, anyone then can replicate it, but they can't replicate it because you own a patent. So then you can sue them and prevent them from using that invention. But however, you have to be very clever in the way you draft your patents to cover all aspects.
Coming back, I suppose, to the point that of what you said about there being a lack of experienced and competent patent, to draft the patents.
Correct.
So there's another question. What if 2 persons submit the same item at the same time?
Well, it's first to file. It's essentially first to file. So it's not first to invent, it's first to file. So you have to be the first to file an invention. So it's exact same time would be, it's the first person that gets it through the door.
The minute.
Yeah.
Minute might count. Okay, so one more. Hi, Revan. What is the difference between a franchise right and a license? Essentially, a franchise includes a license. Hence, when you grant a franchise, you also grant a license. Is that correct?
Correct, absolutely. So a franchise is a type of license which has even a license has conditions attached to it, but a franchise is a lot used in business. For example, a hotel chain may decide to franchise rights to someone to use their trademark, their brand, and operate a business. But then the franchise agreement will set the rules and standards that need to be adhered by in order for you to use that brand name in your hotel chain. So your rooms have to be of a certain standard, your cleanliness has to be of a certain standard, your food has to be of a certain standard. If you fail in doing that, then you're in breach of the agreement, and the franchisor can then terminate the franchise agreement, and then you will lose your franchise. So a franchise governs kind of a business arrangement, whereas a license governs a particular piece of intellectual property, be it a copyright, patent, trademark, or industrial.
Right. So I think that clarifies with the questions we have at the moment. Again, multiple requests coming in for you to share the presentation. So maybe we can compile the two, or combine the two and compile it and share as a publication sometime next week when we've had a little bit of time to get through it. So thank you, Revan. Thank you to each of our participants and our viewers as well. We've run a little bit over time, but as you're all still online with us, I'm sure you're not complaining in that sense. But thank you. An insightful and truly refreshing view on IPR is what we've had in the last 2 sessions. It's been our pleasure at AmCham to facilitate it, and we're really grateful to you, Revan, for taking the time to put a lot of thought into this, coming up with a fresh perspective to share with our audience, as well as the preparation of the presentations and all the effort gone into it. So thank you once again. Wishing everybody a brilliant evening, and of course a great weekend ahead, because the weekend is just around the corner. We're into December, the month of Christmas. So stay safe, and here's wishing you all a pleasant evening, a pleasant weekend, and a COVID-free, safe Christmas, in case I don't speak to any of you over the next couple of days. Thanks a lot, Revan. Good night.